Greetings! This is I, Dracovin, your Lord and Emperor, here at the Dracovin Empire, and welcome, one and all. Are you ready for another exciting day of discussing tabletop? I know I am. And for those of you who are joining me, of course, either live or up on YouTube, hello! We're diving into Pathfinder lore today with another ancestor, the Munavri. So, yes, if you're over on YouTube, please remember to appease the algorithm. You guys over there do help me out a little bit. Remember to like, subscribe, ring the bell, all those kind of great things. My question for you guys there, because you can comment too, or over here is, have any of you dealt with Munavri, or played a Munavri, or anything like that? Because they are an ancestry, which is very interesting and important to the Pathfinder world, Golarion, but also they're one that I definitely respect upon that they aren't going to get any major changes with the core update. Their lore is fine as it is. I think that's the thing is, when we talk about changes from the core updates that are occurring around the time of this video's publishing, woo, some certain places and things have been changed in updates, and some of the things related to them are going to be. But not all. Why don't we dive into them and kind of talk about them and all those great things, because, hey, you know what? I enjoy talking about these things. And let's start, of course, with the big things, the sources that you can look into if you want to do additional research. I'm going to be giving a kind of summarized version of everything, but there are a number of books you can look into. And the unfortunate thing is, their story is told across a number of books. Now, the first 4 books that I'm going to mention here are helpful and important and include stuff, but they include very little. These are the introductions to these entire things. The Aquatic Adventures book, because they are more aquatic-based. Heroes of the Darklands, they're in the Darklands. Of course, the Inner Sea World Guide, and the Occult Bestiary. The Inner Sea World Guide, because it deals with the entire world. Occult Bestiary, they have psychic powers. Hey, all the good reasons. But Darklands Revisited is my main suggestion. They have the largest section on them there, if you're really going to get deep dive into them. All these books do present information, and will maybe have most information I will have now, but the Darklands Revisited has the largest section. So this is a Munavri, but who are they? Well, as I've already said, they live in the Darklands. Actually, in the Sightless Sea in Orv, which is the deep body of water in the Darklands. They inhabit these islands scattered throughout the sea. We'll talk about those islands a little bit here. They are telepathic. They have psychic abilities. The other thing about them that you have to recognize is, though again, individuals can be individuals, societally, they could be considered one of the good races. And one of the few good races that are in the Darklands of Golarion. A lot of that darkness, distance to Rovagug, various evils that are left down there that were driven down there from the surface world. Corrupt. They avoided that. They managed to go beyond that. So, 2 of the main forces they fight against are the Urdefans and the Uguthus. The Urdefans, of course, being these clear-skinned, blood-sucking race, Avorian vampires sometimes, the offsprings of daemons and of Abaddon, humanoids that live down there. Of course, the Uguthus, the species and group of creatures which mastermind the destruction during Earthfall and, are ancient aquatic beings that have plagued it. And they fight against both of those. Those are their primary villains. They are sailors on this sea. They sail in violet-sailed ships carved from ivory that are adept at light naval battles. Against these forces, they sometimes do ally with the Calvi, the Dark Folk. But because of their 2 natures and 2 worlds they kind of come from, these pacts aren't really universal, there's distrust, and usually it kind of breaks apart at the end. Maybe not with violence, but certainly tensions when these alliances finish up. Munavri looks very physically similar to a human. Their skin is so very milky, they have lavender or pink eyes and white hair. And the big thing about them is that they are psychic. They have powers. Telepathy that they, with others of their own kind, and they're telepathic with others of their own kind and rarely speak aloud to one another. And they can, of course, use it to other various things, keep in contact with stuff, read stuff, use magical devices. Another thing you're going to notice there, which will be important, is they are often clad in jade armor. The image there shows one in jade armor. Okay, so now we have a basics of who these are. We should talk about their history. Where do they come from? Well, their history is an interesting one because many of the humanoids in the Darklands, especially ones that are very human in shape and form, are descendants of Azlanti, the ancient empire that was destroyed during Earthfall. Now, again, there are other groups that are down there, of course. There's the Dranalar, there is Yungar, that are all down there and have different connections to other surface species, but for them, Azlanti. Their ancestors were in fact sailors and mariners who were in the sea around Azlanti when Earthfall struck. They were abducted and carried by the Ogolthu to the depths of Orv by means of something called the Braid, a great water spout that connects the Arcadian Ocean to the Sightless Sea. So, again, it wasn't like a direct abduction, it was this great water spout occurred and they were all pulled down there. So these people, these humans, found themselves on Orv. And these first ancestors settled on some of the islands that are actually in the Sightless Sea. They grew pale because of, again, the lack of sunlight, but they actually managed to avoid a lot of the degeneration that had occurred with other Azlanti survivals. The Mongrel Men, the Morlocks, and avoid the, need for something like dark pacts that the Calgni required. They were there. Hello there. I am currently recording, but I can have some conversations about it, and we can put it towards the end there. And if we want some deeper discussions, we can have it at the end, which is perfectly fine. I should have put up my recording message, which I forgot to today. I'll do that. So if you have any questions about it, we'll talk about 2D a little later. Let's do this for now, and we'll pin that. So just, there you go. We'll talk about it a little bit. I would like to discuss with you those things. Anyway, so certainly they were in a lot better position than many of their other fellow Azlanti survivors. But it wasn't to be for long. These homes that they found, that they had initially created, they were driven from by attacks by the Golthus, who were aquatic in the army, and their Ulatkimi armies. These Munavris were perhaps doomed until they found something interesting. Floating jade islands in the Sightless Sea. They made their homes there. And these islands repelled Ogothus, and they are unsure why. They do not know why they do this, but the Ogothu do not assault these places the same way as they could. It repels them. And that's why most of the major settlements of the Munavri are on these jade islands that they discovered still. Minor settlements can be put elsewhere, but again, it's the threat of their ancient enemies are still pretty strong. The combination of exposure to, of course, Darklands and its dark radiation, magics, Rovagog, all the kind of crap going on there, the Ogolthus attacks, their psychic creatures, and these mysterious jade islands, which they build armor and stuff out of, hey, jade, it comes back to that, have allowed them to develop their telepathic abilities. Exposure to massive amounts of magical energy and psychic ability and occult powers makes you psychic, turns out. Now, final thing I'm going to talk about with them for today is, of course, a little bit of their religion. Because their ancestors did originally worship the Azlanti, the old gods. But when they went to the Darklands, they faced a problem. Most of the Azlanti gods died during Earthfall, or became unresponsive after the time of the Cataclysm because of the destroyed Azlanti. Some of those gods returned, continued, existed in different forms. We can trace them. But this quiet time meant that the Munavri had to turn to something. So they turned to beings that they could worship, a set of demigods known as the Imperial Lords. These are celestial demigods, basically, the Imperium Lords. Particularly the Azada versions of them. Because if you look at Imperial Lords, there is Angels, Agathians, and Azadas. They went to the Azadas. The religious hierarchy of the Munavri community is dominated by 3 different figures, known as the Agatham, the Arcanum, and Azatum. And among these, the Azatum is typically the greatest influence in any settlement. But it's particularly a version of these Imperial Lords. And these are kind of generalized names. We don't know particularly, like, which... I think, yeah, none of these up here in the Imperial Lord list. So, Imperial Lord list. But, yeah. So that kind of is our summary of the Munavri. And yes, the Munavri haven't really been introduced in 2nd edition Pathfinder. I'm going to say that now. But again, we might get an adventure in the Darklands. We've done some little bits in the Darklands with the High Helm Dwarven book, but not like a super deep dive. And certainly the Sightless Sea, I don't think was included in that particularly. So we don't really have a lot of updates on them. But again, they are pretty simplistic in their setup and existence. They're a group of sailors that fight against descendants of daemons and Oglyphs in a sea. Oglyphs, at least in a form, exist in the new core edition rules. They were updated. I maybe should check the index there for that one. Got an idea of what's been updated to a degree. Certainly forms of the Agolthus haven't maybe gotten converted over. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But they exist as a group at very least to fight against. And a lot of the other outsiders have kind of shifted around. Things have shifted around with Monster Core. But still a lot of the basics, honestly, stay the same. The small details are different. The big picture stays the same. So, yeah. And so I feel like the Munavri, as an interesting descendant of Azlant, probably won't really get an update. We might get an update in the form of stats for them, information about them, how to play one of them, get some more occult abilities into characters. That would be pretty cool. Maybe we'll get that. Who knows? Again, it's up to Paizo to publish stuff. But I think these are interesting people that would be very fun to play, especially if you're doing Darklands-based adventures and things like that. But regardless, we're going to pause things here now for this video. I usually do a couple of these during a day, if you want to check out more of them. They're usually uploaded a day at a time when they go up to YouTube. Anyway, I hope all of you had a great day. If you want to check it out live, for those of you on the YouTube side, the Twitch side probably already knows this, I'm usually Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays for tabletop-related topics that we talk about, and Saturday's a backup day if I miss any of those, and gaming on some other days. Major things is a Pathfinder 1st Edition live play, Crimson Queen, on Wednesdays, 9 p.m., and discussing tabletop. My tabletop discussion show will be talking news of the week and interesting deep topics which are very educational. I would highly recommend at the very least if you want to skip the news on Saturdays at 6, discussing tabletop. Anyway, for those of you at very least on YouTube, until the next time, I bid you all a deep and wonderful farewell.